November 8, 1519. Spanish conquistadors climb a mountain ridge in central Mexico and look down at something impossible. A city of 200,000 people floating in the middle of a lake, larger than Paris, larger than Venice, larger than any city in Europe except Constantinople. White temples gleaming in the sun, canals glittering like veins of silver, boats gliding between rectangular green islands stretching to the horizon. The soldiers asked if it was a dream. It was not a dream. It was an engineering system so advanced that it could feed 250,000 people with no tractors, no chemical fertilizers, no irrigation pumps. A system so efficient, it produced up to 7 harvests per year. So sustainable, it kept working for over 500 years. And so dangerous to modern infrastructure that they declared war on it. They almost won. Welcome to Buried Garden. If this kind of hidden infrastructure history matters to you, subscribe and share, because this story is not just about the past. It is about what we are losing right now. Bernal Díaz del Castillo, a Spanish soldier, wrote about what he saw that day. When we saw all those cities and villages built on water, we were astounded. They were great towns, shrines, and buildings rising from the water. Some of our soldiers asked whether it was not all a dream. The city was called Tenochtitlan, capital of the Aztec Empire, and the green islands surrounding it, the rectangular plots that made the impossible possible, were called Chinampas. Let us kill the myth immediately. Chinampas are not floating gardens. They do not drift. They do not bob on the surface like rafts. They are anchored to the lakebed with wooden stakes filled with layers of mud, sediment, and organic material, then locked permanently in place by something the Aztecs understood better than any modern engineer: living architecture. At the corners of each chinampa, farmers planted a native willow called aquatic. These trees sent roots down through the soil, through the water, into the lake bed itself, creating a living anchor system that grew stronger every year. The dimensions were precise. Each plot measured roughly 6 to 10 meters wide and up to 200 meters long. They rose approximately half a meter above the water level. Between them ran canals, 1.5 meters deep and 4 to 6 meters wide. Just enough space for a canoe to pass. Imagine a city grid made entirely of gardens, separated by highways made of water. The construction method required no machinery whatsoever. Workers drove wooden posts into the shallow lakebed to form a rectangular frame. They wove reeds, vines, and branches between the posts to create a fence. The Nahuatl word for this fence was Chinamitl, which is where the name Chinampa originates. Inside the fence, they piled layers of mud scraped from the lake bottom, aquatic vegetation, and decomposing organic material. They let the top layer dry for weeks before planting. Then, they installed the willows at the corners. The island was complete. It would last for centuries. How old is this technology? Older than the Aztecs themselves. Archaeological evidence dates the earliest securely confirmed Chinampas to the Middle Post-Classic period, between 1150 and 1350 CE. But cultivation in the Xochimilco region stretches back approximately 3,500 years, long before the Aztec Empire existed. The Nahua settlement of Culhuacan may have built the first Chinampas around 1100 CE. The Aztecs did not invent this system. They inherited it and then scaled it to feed an empire. In 1325, the Aztecs founded Tenochtitlan on a small island in Lake Texcoco. As the population grew, they faced a crisis. The island was running out of space. Their solution was to expand the Chinampa system from small household plots into industrial-scale food production. By 1519, Chinampas ringed the capital and covered vast areas of lakes Xochimilco and Chalco. The system extended across 5 interconnected lakes in the Valley of Mexico. Today, the remaining Chinampas sit near Lake Chimilco, approximately 23 kilometers south of downtown Mexico City, at an elevation of 2,240 meters above sea level. Here is where the engineering becomes elegant. Modern farms pump water to crops. Chinampas do the opposite. They let crops drink from below. The canal water rises through capillary action into the Chinampa soil. As long as the root zone remains within approximately 85 centimeters of the groundwater, plants have constant access to moisture without any active irrigation. The canal served multiple functions simultaneously. Small ditches connected individual Chinampas for water distribution. Larger channels served as transportation corridors for canoes carrying produce, people, and materials. The same waterways provided hydrological control, managing water levels across the entire interconnected system. No pumps, no motors, no fuel, just human understanding of how water moves through soil. The construction of the system surrounding Tenochtitlan required an estimated 25 million person-days of labor spread over 40 years. Every channel was dug by hand. Every island was built with human muscle and simple tools. The result was one of the most productive agricultural systems ever created anywhere on Earth. If water delivery is built into the infrastructure, what about fertility? Most farms exhaust their soil within a few seasons without chemical inputs. Chinampas have been producing continuously for centuries. How is that possible? A considerable portion of the fertility in Chinampa soils is inherent to the system, meaning it is generated within the aquatic components of the Chinampa itself. The canal floors accumulate organic material constantly. Decomposing plants, animal waste, waterborne debris all settle into nutrient-rich sediment. Farmers regularly scoop this muck from the canal bottoms and spread it on their fields. The process clears the canals while fertilizing the crops at the same time, a closed loop that renews itself perpetually. But the recycling extended further. Aquatic vegetation was harvested and incorporated directly into the soil. Human waste was collected throughout Tenochtitlan and transported via canal to the Chinampas. Historical records indicate that people could actually sell their waste in Aztec marketplaces because it was valuable for farming. By the 16th century, laws existed against dumping waste in public spaces. The Aztecs invented municipal recycling before Europe had functional sewers. Modern soil analysis confirms what this system produces. Chinampa soils in Xochimilco measure as alkaline and saline, with significant organic carbon content. Researchers recorded approximately 21.7 tons of carbon per hectare in the top 20 centimeters under amaranth cultivation, up to 28.4 tons per hectare at deeper levels. These are carbon-rich soils that actively sequester greenhouse gases while producing food. The farmers also developed a technique called chapines, small squares of soil used as portable seed beds. Seeds germinated in these beds while existing crops still grew in the main fields. When seedlings reached optimal size, farmers transplanted them into the Chinampa soil. The result was staggered planting cycles and continuous harvests throughout the year. Complex rotations and crop associations allowed up to 7 harvests a year. Compare that to conventional agriculture, which typically produces 1 or 2 harvests per year. One Chinampa could yield 3 to 4 different crops at minimum, and with optimal rotation, up to 7. The staple crops included maize, beans, squash, and amaranth, 4 of the 5 foundational foods of Aztec civilization. Farmers also grew tomatoes, chili peppers, lettuces, herbs, radishes, spinach, chard, and flowers, including the cempasúchil marigolds still used for Day of the Dead celebrations. Modern chinamperos in Xochimilco continue producing over 50 species on these same plots. Scholarly estimates suggest that 1 hectare of intensively worked chinampa could support 15 to 20 individuals year-round. The Chinampas surrounding Tenochtitlan allegedly provided at least 2/3 of all food consumed in the capital. The system fed over 200,000 people without industrial agriculture, without chemical fertilizers, without mechanization. Today, one Xochimilco farm produces up to 100 kilograms of broccoli per day from just 7,000 square meters of Chinampa land. The canals and vegetation also created sheltered microclimates. Crops were protected from frosts that would devastate conventional fields. The surrounding water regulated temperature and moisture levels. The Aztecs engineered their own weather. Then the Spanish arrived. They spent the next 500 years trying to make it all disappear. In 1521, Tenochtitlan fell after a brutal siege. During the fighting, the Spanish destroyed the dikes and sluice gates that controlled the lake system. Many Chinampa fields were immediately abandoned. In 1607, Spain began the Decaying, a massive drainage project intended to control flooding in their new colonial capital. A German-born engineer named Enrico Martinez oversaw 40,000 workers who dug 14 miles of channels and a 4-mile tunnel using only hand tools. In 1629 and 1630, catastrophic floods kept Mexico City underwater for 5 years. The drainage had failed spectacularly, but they kept draining anyway. They built a city on a lake, then spent 400 years trying to get rid of the water that made the city possible. They drained Lake Texcoco, once covering 2,000 square miles, to almost nothing. They replaced canals with concrete roads. They pumped groundwater until the clay beneath the city began to compress. Mexico City now sinks approximately 1 meter every single year. In the 1970s and 1980s, they introduced carp and tilapia into the canals as part of poverty relief programs. These invasive species now constitute 95% of all animal biomass in the waters, and they devour the eggs of native species. Starting in the 1930s, they filled the canals with treated sewage water because the natural water sources had been diverted elsewhere. They allowed illegal settlements to encroach on protected Chinampa zones while doing nothing to stop them. The numbers are devastating. Chinampa cultivation area decreased by over 60% during the second half of the 20th century. Urban land in Xochimilco expanded from 46.7% in 1989 to 57.2% in 2006. Space allocated for Chinampas collapsed from 7.4% to just 2.5% in the same period. Greenhouse agriculture, the industrial replacement they promoted, grew from 0.02% to 2.3%. They pushed modernization. They rewarded greenhouses. They turned the canals from infrastructure into obstacles. Only about 2,000 hectares of active Chinampas remain today, down from an estimated 15,000 hectares in pre-Columbian times. Approximately 16,000 individual Chinampas now sit abandoned in Xochimilco. Only 17% are considered active agricultural production. Just 15% of the protected national park area is actually used for farming. The most productive sustainable agriculture system in the world has been reduced to roughly 3% of its former range. Since 1950, the canals have been fed by treated sewage water from the Cerro de la Estrella treatment plant. Treated does not mean clean. The water contains pathogens, pollutants, and industrial chemicals. By the 1980s, Chinampa farmers were officially prohibited from growing edible plants due to contamination concerns. Water quality became so degraded that Chinampas reported sometimes runs yellow from the pipes. The invasive fish introduced by the government devastated native species. The axolotl, the iconic salamander of Aztec mythology, crashed by 98% in just 10 years. In 2003, researchers counted 6,000 axolotls per square kilometer of canal. By 2015, that number had collapsed to 36. The water monster of ancient Mexico is racing toward extinction in its only native habitat. Young people are leaving the Chinampas. Farming is seen as low status and economically precarious. The average age of remaining Chinamperos is now above 40 years old. Industrial agriculture consistently rejects Chinampa produce for not meeting uniformity standards. Many plots have been converted to soccer fields, party venues, and tourist trajinera route. They sell you uniformity. They sell you convenience. And the ancient system dies a little more each year. But it has not died yet. In December 1987, Xochimilco was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List alongside Mexico City's historic center. In 2018, the Food and Agriculture Organization recognized Chinampas as a globally important agricultural heritage system. The world declared it precious. Now the question is whether anyone will actually save it. For 15 years, researchers at UNAM, the National Autonomous University of Mexico, have worked on comprehensive Chinampa restoration through their Ecological Restoration Laboratory. Their Chinampa Refugio program rehabilitates abandoned Chinampas and secondary canals to create protected refuges for axolotls and native species. Intensive fishing programs systematically remove invasive carp and tilapia. Environmental monitoring systems track ecosystem recovery. Collaboration with working Chinamperos has been essential to every phase. The time spent and the constant work with Chinamperos resulted in a robust plan that actually functions. A new certification initiative called the Chinampara label positions Chinampa produce in urban markets. Clean, agrochemical-free production is verified and certified. The program supports biodiversity conservation while directly improving farmer income. Buy from a Chinampa, save an ecosystem. Wetlands, like Xochimilco, are strategic ecosystems for climate change mitigation. The organic rich soils capture and store significant quantities of carbon. The water system absorbs excess rainfall that would otherwise flood Mexico City's streets. The vegetation regulates temperature across the surrounding urban area. If the Xochimilco wetland disappeared, it would immediately impact temperature regulation, flood control, and carbon capture capacity. It would fundamentally change the environment of one of the world's largest cities. Researcher Roland Ebel of Montana State University has studied Chinampas extensively. His conclusion is direct. Wherever you have freshwater lakes near a big city, Chinampa-like systems are conceivable, and this applies to many parts of the world. Potential sites include the Rhone River Delta in France, the Elbe near Hamburg, and the Gulf of Finland. Experimental trials have been reported in Indonesia, Bangladesh, Japan, and even Chicago. 700 years ago, the Aztecs solved the problem of feeding massive urban populations sustainably. We forgot the answer. It is still there waiting for us. Learn to recognize Chinampas landscapes. Rectangular plots lined with ahuejote willows, separated by narrow water channels. Seek out Chinampa-grown produce at markets and look for the Chinampara certification. If you visit Xochimilco, choose eco-tours that support working Chinampas, rather than party boats that erode the canal banks. The system survived 500 years of systematic attack because knowledge was passed down generation to generation. Share that knowledge now. The conquistadors saw it once. They called it a dream. Then they woke up and spent 5 centuries trying to make it disappear. But the Chinampas are still there, still producing food, still waiting for someone to remember what they can do. The Aztecs did not just build a city, they built a lesson for all of human civilization. You can feed millions of people without destroying the world that feeds you. One system, 3,500 years of accumulated knowledge, almost buried. If you want to keep digging, subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Every share helps preserve what they have been trying to bury. See you in the garden.